So I think we're all aware that we live in a culture that is consumer driven, and many products are built with planned obsolescence in them to force us to continually buy new crap, right? That phenomena is fairly recent in the music industry, at least on a large scale. I mean, it hasn't been that long since when you bought gear, you would buy it and expect it to last for a long time. Kind of like this Carvin. I bought this in 2003, and it's still going strong. It looks great, it sounds great, and I'm pretty sure that when I leave this earth, I'm going to bequeath this to my heirs. Or maybe we're thinking about guitar pedals. I've had this Boss DD3 since the mid-'80s. It works great. It sounds great. And I could probably hammer nails with it. But I have had multiple experiences with gear and gear manufacturers that have let me down by essentially planning obsolescence into their products. The first real experience that I had with that revolved around the Mackie Onyx 400F audio interface. It was my first really, quote, really good interface. It was rack mount, 4 mic preamps. It sounded great. I was really proud of it. I really liked it. But what I found out was, shortly after I bought it, that the FireWire interface that it used to connect to my computer was on its way out. And sure enough, within about a year and a half after I bought the unit, the manufacturer Mackie discontinued development of the software driver and the software-based mixer. And I was stuck dead in the water with an old computer that was slowly dying. And I had nowhere to go with that unit. And not only that, about a year after that, maybe about another year or so, I had a hardware issue with the unit. So I called up Mackie about it, and they said, "Oh, sorry, we're no longer supporting that unit." So I ended up with a brick on my hands. I couldn't bear to throw it away, so I kept it for many years, and I finally recycled it. But I don't think I will ever buy a Mackie product again. Another experience that I had in that same time frame was with this Yamaha Magic Stomp. And I dearly love the Magic Stomp, not least because this unit is loaded with the Alan Holdsworth presets from the magical, mythical Yamaha UD Stomp. The problem is that you can't do any deep editing with this unit unless you connect it to a computer and run the editing software. Well, again, I bought this unit towards the end of its life, before it was discontinued, and Yamaha only continued development on that software for about a year after I bought this unit. After that, they discontinued it, and again, I was stuck with an old computer that was slowly dying without any way to move to another computer and a newer operating system and still have access to the editor. I finally had to, and I do still use this unit because the Alan Holdsworth presets sound really cool, but I can no longer create my own patches. And yes, I know there's a couple of open source solutions for this on GitHub, but man, I'm not happy with Yamaha for sticking that to me with this unit. In addition to those two past experiences, I kind of have an ongoing experience right now, and that's with the Headrush pedal board and related gear. I purchased this several years ago, and yes, I did buy it for full retail. And I actually have gotten a lot of good use out of it, but I've always disliked the looper on the pedal board, and I've been hoping for Headrush to improve the looper. They did one improvement several years ago, and I think it was based on some grief that I gave them when I wrote in to talk to them about it. But I found out recently that in November of 24, so about 5.5 months ago, as of the posting of this video, that they have discontinued development of the firmware updates for this the MX5, the looper board, and the gig board. Like they have legacyized 4 of their major products all at the same time. Now, the pedal board still works fine and it still sounds the same, and I don't expect that to change, but they're never going to fix the looper on this thing. So I've given up hope on that. And I'm wondering, 2 years from now, if I have a problem with the unit and I call Headrush, will they still support it from a hardware perspective? That will be interesting to see. So what can we as musicians do to avoid the despair and disappointment of our extremely expensive musical gear becoming boat anchors, obsolete bricks? I've got a few thoughts on that. One is, buy pedals, if you're buying a pedal, that don't require a computer hookup. Good example that I have that I really like is the Strymon Dig. And yes, before you drop a comment, feel free to drop a comment anyhow. I am a Strymon fanboy. I truly am. But this is a great example. It's not the only example. There's not even any way to connect it to a computer. You just twist the knobs and get the sound you want and go. And you know, if this unit ever breaks, I can buy another one, or if Strymon has stopped making them at some point in the future, I can go out to reverb.com or wherever and buy a used one, and I know it's going to have the same sound, and I know it's going to work with my setup. Another suggestion, in particular if you're considering a multi-effects unit where you're creating complex patches, is to look for a unit where you can do all the deep editing for a patch right on the unit itself without requiring a connection to a computer. A good example, even though I just complained about Headrush, but I can create all the patches I want right on the unit without connecting to a computer. Also, on the topic of multi-effect units, if you do decide you want a unit where you really do kind of need the editing software to realistically create a bunch of patches, I think looking for a company that has a good track record with their drivers and software, in other words, their kind of software ecosystem, is really key. And I think a good example, it's not the only example, but I think a good example, at least so far, we'll see if they continue, is Line 6. I've had this Helix LT now for a bunch of years, and I think Line 6 has done a good job of progressing the firmware, but also with the editing software and ensuring that, in my case, I'm a Mac guy, so ensuring that the editing software works with all of the progressive updates to the Mac operating system. Another idea is to look for companies, hardware companies, that future-proof their hardware. I recently was looking to upgrade my old Focusrite audio interface, and I decided I wanted something that would last me for a long time. So I did some research and found Metric Halo, and this is not sponsored by them. I purchased their gear at full retail again, but I decided to go with them. They were kind of expensive, but I decided to go with Metric Halo for the audio interface because, one, they support their hardware for many, many years, even decades, and two, they make their hardware upgradable. So as they make improvements to their technology, you can buy individual components and actually upgrade the hardware instead of having to throw it out and buy something new. I thought that was a great model, and I've been very pleased with my purchase thus far. And I also think a really important thing to do as a musician, as a guitarist, if you're like me, is to figure out your sound and then figure out how to get your sound regardless of the equipment that you're using. So, example from my life is I have determined that I really love Fender Deluxe reverbs and the sound of them. As a matter of fact, I owned a Fender Deluxe reverb amplifier for many, many years. And to this day, that's pretty much what I go for the amplifier sound. So regardless of the multi-effects unit or the amp modeler like this Strymon Iridium, I'm always looking for a unit that has a good Fender Deluxe reverb sound. And because I know what I like and I look for hardware that can do that, I can move from one piece of hardware to another and still get my sound and not be beholden to one piece of hardware that might become obsolete and become a brick. So do you have any tales of woe and despair, of planned obsolescence, of boat anchors, of bricks? Comment below. Let's commiserate together. Also, do you have any advice for the rest of us on how to navigate this world of products that are planned to be obsolescent? Drop a comment too. And in the meantime, I'm going to go get some of my future obsolete equipment and go play some guitar. I'll see y'all on the next video.